Welcome to Sony's session, Create Infinite Realities. As you may know, Sony's purpose is to fill the world with emotion through the power of creativity and technology. At Sony, we refer to emotion as the Japanese word kando, which means to be emotionally moved by something. In 10 years, what kind of kando do you imagine in the future? Sony thinks that we'll be living in a more multi-layered world where physical and virtual realities overlap without boundaries. If Sony, as a creative entertainment company, would be filling the world with new kando in that future, what kind of experiential value would we be offering to make that happen? To explore this question, we brought out the concept of creative entertainment vision, envisioning through the lens of Sony's creativity and technology. As you watch the video right before the session, you may have noticed different ways that IP can be handled or experienced, from creation to cross-media adaptations to immersive experiences. These are among many of the things that Sony is hoping to accomplish in the next 10 years. To realize this vision, there are many initiatives within Sony. Today, we will hear about a project from Sony Pictures Entertainment and the Entertainment Technology Center at the University of Southern California, or ETC at USC, that explores transmedia experiences. Joining us on stage from Sony Pictures Entertainment is Daniel De La Rosa, VP for Post-Production Technology Development. From ETC at USC, Eric Weaver, who is Principal with AI and Emergent Media, and students Madhupriya Basu, who is majoring in Interactive Media and Game Design, and Charlotte Chen, who is majoring in Applied and Computational Mathematics and Economics. Please welcome Daniel, Eric, Madhupriya, and Charlotte to the stage.
Thank you, Deanna. Hi, everybody. As Deanna said, my name is Daniel De La Rosa. I work for Sony Pictures Entertainment, Vice President of Post-Production for Technology Development. And quick introductions from you guys.
I'm Eric Weaver. I work for the ETC at USC, and I focus on production and emerging media workflows.
Hello, I'm Madhupriya Basu, a second-year IMGD student doing game design at USC.
Hi, I'm Charlotte. I am actually a computer science and business administration major. I switched majors recently. But yeah, I'm a sophomore at USC.
And so we embarked on this project this past year. It's actually the second year of the project in partnership with ETC at USC, called the Transmedia Student Challenge. And since it involves students, I figured I'd let you know what the assignment was, which was to develop an engaging transmedia experience that blends storytelling techniques, multiple media forms, tools, and resources in new and original ways. And what that means is essentially figure out new ways of using today's technology to tell stories. And we didn't give them any kind of boundaries in terms of the creative aspect of it all, but we did encourage them to use different technologies, especially in the realm of XR. The timeline for the project was 12 weeks. It occurred last year, the last school semester for USC, and it was broken out into different phases of pre-production, production, post-production, delivery. During that time at the beginning, the students prepared 2 pitches, and the moderators, myself, Eric, and another gentleman named Thomas, looked at those pitches, chose one of the pitches for the team to pursue, and then once they had their given assignment, if you will, they went ahead and went through a couple of prototyping phases where we gave them some feedback, just to determine what the feasibility of some of their concepts were. And once they were able to finalize what the overall concept was, they prepared a list of materials, including whether it's computers, headsets, anything like Adreno boards, or even, in this case, a spatial reality display from Sony. Once they had all the materials, they went through 3 production phases in which We gave them feedback as they progressed through those phases, and then finally they wrapped it all up and prepared and presented the results over at Sony Picture Studios. We had about almost 40 applicants for this program, and of those 40 applicants, 11 students were chosen. Originally, we were going to do two-person teams, and the students kind of had their own thoughts about that, and so they actually organized themselves into three-person teams and one two-person team. And you can see the team's alignment there. We had a good mix of both graduate and undergraduate students this year. It was almost a 50-50 split, and as opposed to last year where we had predominantly grad students. But the idea behind the team composition was to really pair technical students with more creative-oriented or design students, just because we felt those skill sets were very complementary to each other. And a lot of students came to the program with portfolios already in place, and we actually had one that was a pretty big seller of digital goods on Roblox. So these are their QR codes for either their LinkedIn or their portfolios. If you want to grab that and get more kind of background on the individual students from the program. But it was really, really interesting to see the students kind of collaborate in their teams and develop their projects. Next, we're just going to show you a quick highlight video of kind of behind the scenes. And Eric, while it's playing, if you want to give a little background on what the Entertainment Technology Center is.
Sure. So the ETC is an organization that was founded about 33 years ago at the behest of George Lucas. And what we were doing with this was looking at how change was coming. Mr. Lucas was especially concerned with the idea of DCI, or digital cinema, coming on the board. And so what we did was we helped pull the CTOs of the studios together, look at this as a community, define about 80% of a standard, then hand it off to SMPTE, or the Society of Motion Picture Technical Engineers, to finish. So it helped bring that together. Now what we do is a lot more of this looking around the corner. What's coming up? What's happening? How are we going to engage with media across the board? And it's really easy from our perspective to think it's going to be very traditional, but the next generation really loves agency and being involved in things. So this kind of gives that opportunity to explore their voices.
Yeah, and it was interesting going through these projects, and I felt this year especially the major theme, if there was one, was around wellness. And a lot of the projects conveyed that concept. And I'll briefly kind of cover the 4 projects right now. But Team 1 did a cloud room project, which is basically a place where somebody could recharge. They had we actually purchased a big cloud white bounce house, and they used some projection mapping to actually map, as you can see right there, the experience up onto the walls of the cloud house. And they used not only just projection mapping, they used motion capture technologies as well as Adreno and Touch Designer to basically allow a person to interact with the space, and their interactions would cause the imagery to change accordingly. And
after a couple experiences I had out there in the crowds and the heat, I might have needed this today. So
yeah.
I'm sad we don't have it.
Yeah. We would have brought it. It was rather large to transport. But next, I'll go ahead and have Charlotte talk about her project, which was really interesting as well.
Yeah, so just a brief overview. My team and I decided to kind of take your physiological data and turn it into music. So the 2 main tools or like hardware that we use was the Muse 2 headband, and that would take EEG readings, and then the Polar H10 heart rate sensor. And then that would kind of read your heart rate, send it to a software, and it would determine the tempo of the music. And then the EEG kind of determined different musical elements, like the bass, different pads, ARPs, things like that.
And Madhupriya was on Team 3 that did Torntail, and it's also the demo we have at the back of the room. But Madhu, you want to take us through it?
Yes. So Torrentail was originally sort of like about animal cruelty and how we as humans should get together and understand what animals go through in annual hunting season. We used spatial reality display from Sony to bring this game to life and use Unreal Engine for scripting purposes. So in this game, we basically use head tracking through the depth sensor camera that it has, track the head and across the y-axis and a z-axis to do multiple different mechanics for the game.
And it was really interesting because it was a kind of a novel approach to using that camera, which was traditionally just to be able to look at the images in 3D. But Madhu's team took it a step further to actually have it be controls for the actual game itself. And the fourth and final team did an interesting concept around training and really specifically around a documentary kind of simulation. So this was basically geared as a VR game to help somebody learn how to interview people when it comes to producing a documentary. It was they used the MetaQuest 3 and Unreal Engine to help develop that, and it was an interesting and one of the more abstract concepts of the different projects. But next I wanted to kind of roll into a panel discussion and just kind of open up to some questions, especially for our two students here on the panel. And so I've got some questions scripted that I'll actually put on the screen. So question number one, and no particular order in which you want to respond, but how was your experience working on this program?
It was obviously like a really great opportunity to kind of explore a multitude of new technologies, like even in other teams as well. Like there are technologies that I didn't even know of, like what the team back there did with Torntel. And so I think just being able to kind of expose myself to a new, like, I guess, avenue of work that I hadn't like previously known about, kind of influenced how I see, I guess, my future career as well. So I can see myself kind of also interacting with hardware, just playing with new technologies, considering like R&D roles, stuff like that. Yeah, so just like being able to change my perspective on how I view technology as a whole.
So we had very small teams working on these multiple emerging technology with these projects, which was interesting because all of us were wearing a lot of hats. And with that, we get to learn a lot of different things. So I'm a designer who was vibe coding on Blueprint on Unreal, and at the same time also doing UI, UX, concept art, which was a very, very holistic experience. And I think that increases the amount of learnings I took from the program.
And I know we didn't talk about it in the slides, but one of the other kind of byproducts from this program was kind of a mentorship kind of track, if you will, where you got to meet with several executives in the industry from notably Disney, Red Bull, the Grammys is in the awards, as well as folks from Sony. How was your experience in those mentorship sessions?
So the most important takeaway that I took from them is that they kept saying, keep trying, don't give up, just keep trying. Because the worst thing you can do to yourself is giving up. So I think that really stuck to me, and which is why even though sometimes we would like get stuck in a part of the project, we would approach people, approach Christy, who was our mentor, and she would like help us so much during the entire project with SRD, Sony Spatial Reality Display.
For me personally, I think there are two big things that I took away. One was to keep building every day. I think that's something that I'll keep with me. I've seen like all of the people that came in, they were talking about how they always strive to make something new and like kind of, I guess, exercise their creative tendencies. And then the second thing is that I guess like in terms of career path, it could go really anywhere. Like there's a lot of people with so many diverse experiences that I would have never imagined would have led to that specific role that they were in. So I don't know, it's like inspiring to see other people be able to experience a multitude of different, I guess, roles. And yeah, it creates like a very hopeful future, I think.
And Eric, for you, and I'll hand the mic to you in a sec. But but I know you weren't one of the teams. But as you know, as an observer, how was your experience seeing like the teams progress over the course of the 12 weeks?
It's actually a lot of fun because they're exploring so many things and so unique. It's almost, at our board meetings sometimes, we'll bring in students to the CTOs and they'll get to listen to their perspective. And it's so radically different than some of the rest of the people. So it's really refreshing and kind of new. And especially with this many technologies. I was also really interested did you have a very favorite mentor session? Was there one that stood out to you as, wow, that was cool?
We had like a Red Bull, or I guess past Red Bull kind of, I think he was with like marketing. I think.
AEG.
Yeah, and then he moved to
He just was
AEG.
making the transition from Red Bull to AEG, which was the concert ticketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we discussed his role at Red Bull, and it kind of gave a new perspective I had on that company as a whole. They like strive to just be the coolest company out there, which is, I don't know, just a really cool concept. It's nice to see that sometimes people don't take things too seriously. They can have a little bit of fun, which is cool. So, yeah.
Real quick, so did you get a case of Red Bull? Did you actually get to visit Red Bull? Because like I went there once and they like gave me a whole case when I left.
Unfortunately not. We did not, but I've been drinking Red Bull like more often now. So I guess it worked. Yeah.
Well, my favorite one was from Disney, and she talked a lot about like the work that she's doing within Disney for animators and artists. And it's under NDA, but it was still really incredibly interesting for me. About the Red Bull, that was also interesting because they were talking about how Red Bull is all over the place, like everywhere. You see their logo, and that is for a very good reason. So, yeah.
Great. And then in terms of your projects themselves, can you kind of tell us a little bit about what the inspiration was for each of your projects?
As I've mentioned before, like the animal, I really wanted to create something with regards to annual hunting season so that people view them with more sympathy. And because I wanted to, we as a team wanted to use something that is more emerging, spatial reality display fit that category, and we really wanted to use it. In this particular case, the main mechanic is the jumping mechanic, which worked perfectly well with the reality display, considering VR headsets and other controllers are more heavy gear. And with that standpoint, we were like, okay, because there's no gear associated with SRD, we can just have them jump freely and calculate the tracking for the game.
So Allison and I, which was my other, I guess, tech teammate, we both come from game backgrounds. Actually, all three of us. Caitlin as well, who was more on the art side. And so whenever you play games, it's mostly intentional input. And so we kind of want to put a spin on that while still like creating some kind of like experience. And so having that idea and then kind of combining it with the desire to kind of experiment with new tech is how we found like biofeedback technology. And so again, just pulling from another passion of ours, music, it kind of made sense to just see how we could play with all of those different aspects and create something really cool.
Yeah, it was quite the ambitious project of trying to figure out how to crowd all that data back. And I know we talked about the mentorship session a little bit, but you also were able to get some feedback from a Sony engineer as well.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, we got to meet up with a Sony engineer who also was working with some kind of BCI technology. I don't know if I can discuss it on stage, but it was really cool. He provided a lot of insight on the kind of technology we would need to use, also the kinds of considerations that we would need to have when it came to using EEGs, like making sure there was making sure there was no, I guess, noise with the headset itself, because it's a very sensitive kind of hardware to use, things like that. So it was like a really helpful starting point for us students, especially not really knowing anything about EEGs, similar things. So yeah, it was very helpful.
All right. Next question. I know we kind of touched a little bit about it a couple questions ago, but one, what's your current career aspirations? In other words, what do you want to be when you grow up? And two, how has the experience of this program changed or influenced those aspirations?
Yeah, so I kind of talked about that in the beginning. I'd say previously I was more involved in software, I'd say. And so having this experience provided me with the hardware to use, kind of took away that friction, and being able to just like see that I could do it, and that a lot of really cool things could come out of it has pushed me more in that direction. I wouldn't say I'd completely give up software, because I think there's still a really cool part, but like having both of those two kind of play together. But yeah, just still looking into that experimental like kind of area, and then also like hardware and software. It just like made me really love tech more, I think. And so I feel like I don't want to be too set on like some specific role or like something like that. So I'm just continuing to explore kind of what I did with Sony, and seeing where that takes me.
Yeah, and I second that, because the only thing constant is change in this world, honestly. So, like, because I still want to stick with design, but design for multitude of technology. Like, there's SRD, there's VR, there's all kinds of technology that are going to come in the coming years. So I don't have a set role associated with what I want with my future, but definitely it would be in design and management. Yeah.
Okay, great. And before you answer this one, I'll let Eric also respond a little bit, because you touched upon it early on with ETC. So ETC actually has a thing we do about once a year where we bring on students and get their feedback on what kind of content appeals to them and how do they actually consume content, what's their consumption habits. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Are you referring to the board meetings? Yeah. So we'll bring in a student group of diverse students from different programs at USC, and we'll basically set up a series of questions. And in case you don't know, our board is basically the CTO or equivalent at Sony, Warner Brothers, Universal, Paramount, Disney, Epic Games, and a couple others. So it is a really big disconnect. And I think one of the places I actually saw that the most was MoviePass. Back in the day, the MoviePass folks said, the kids said the students said we go to the movies every single week. And as soon as that died, they never went again. It was really kind of sad. But getting their perspectives on how they're engaging things on a daily basis is so great from this perspective.
Yeah, that's kind of was part of the inspiration for this program, was also just not only find out what the consumption habits or what experiences the next generation's interested in, but kind of actually having them develop something that they themselves would enjoy. So that being said, Madhu and Charlotte, like what kind of entertainment experiences appeal to you and your friends currently?
Because we are the generation with a lot of social media and everything that is on the internet, we prefer physical digital experiences now, in a way that we go out with friends and see these emerging technologies actually that are like kind of tactile and physical for us. It also gives like a bit of sci-fi feel to it, which is really cool. Yeah, we want to get out of social media.
I think, yeah, I agree with that. I think in my head and like amongst my like experiences that I am pursuing, I do also think that having the ability to kind of take the digital world and then make it physical is something that I really look forward to and something that I hope to contribute to as well. Yeah, I think just being so like reliant on the digital world, spending so much time in there, it kind of makes the physical world like so much more important. Like, you know how they say like distance makes the heart grow fonder. Like it's just something like that. So yeah.
And on that note, I mean, you mentioned a little bit, Madhu, on your experience, how you didn't want to go the headset route because, one, it was prohibitive to the mechanic of the jumping, but also it just, opened it up to just allow a much more approachable kind of experience for you guys. How, you want to comment on that a little bit?
Yes. So the headsets can be a little isolating. I love VR headsets. I'm an immersive designer myself. But they can be a little isolating, even with multiplayer games. So having people see you jump and like being able to have that freedom to not have this heaviness in your head is something that a lot of new technologies are approaching. How to make it more intuitive, how to make the design heuristic more viable for the product. And I think that's a beautiful thing that is like just coming so fast to us and very accessible in a way. So, yeah.
And you guys actually, because there's so many different kind of areas of study at USC and in the School of Cinema, you've got a bunch of people focusing on certain things. Also, what I found was really interesting about your project was that you brought kind of an additional kind of team member on, almost like a fourth team member to compose music.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So he recently got into Bleeding Fingers, and he's an amazing composer from School of Thornton at USC. And we brought him in to get the emotional sense of the game more so that people can understand, like players can understand how the rabbit is really feeling. Even if you see the game, like it's from a rabbit's point of view, it uses blues and greens. Those are the colors that a rabbit can see. And for the cinematic, we use more reds to hint like a sense of murder. So there's a little bit of cinematic going on within the gameplay. With our fourth teammate, he really helped us a lot in a way to get across the emotion and the narrative flow. He also directed from a narrative standpoint, even though he's a composer. Amazing time. It was a really good team dynamic that we had with engineer, design, and music. It came together so well in the end of our deadline. Yeah.
And that was the other thing, and I don't know if you have any comments on that one, Eric, as well, is that I found that student teams actually were really resourceful and not hesitating to, one, reach out to each other, team across team, for help and assistance, but also reach out to their friends in other kind of areas of study and schools, school programs to basically get some help and assistance there.
Yeah, it's really kind of a puzzle putting all these things together. And so going to those other schools or the other disciplines and finding the music person and other stuff, that is a great thing about the university, where you can pick and find and hunt for those things.
All right, next question. So we already touched upon this in several questions, but what new ideas or different ways of thinking will you take back with you now that you've kind of gone through this program?
I would definitely approach every single emergent technology without getting scared. I think the biggest thing that I learned from this Transmedia challenge was not to be scared of the unknown. There are going to be bugs, there are going to be problems. We just need to resolve it somehow. And if it's not resolvable, there is always a workaround. We can always find another, like the third door. Yeah, and new ideas would be, because of this, of how open I was to emergent technology, I've been looking up different technology that I can work with now. And I recently also got exposed to the concept of quantum computing. I don't know a lot about it, but I've been interested, so I've been researching about it, if I can design something or apply the concept for something. I don't know, it's been pretty cool ever since that part of my personality got unlocked.
And also, really quick, Madhu, also you mentioned Christy from the Zen team
Yes.
helped you a lot. In what ways was she able to get you to really leverage the spatial reality display?
So our conversation was over email, and considering that, she replied to us like really fast. So like we were facing issues with the head tracking, which was the main mechanic of our game. But in the end, she brought one of her friends too, and together we resolved something at the last moment, and it worked out. But head tracking, originally someone from Sony told us that the game is very novel in a way that it has never been done in a similar mechanic before. So we could not find how to make the blueprint for the mechanic that we're looking for. Yeah, they really helped us. They were like amazing mentors. We're so grateful to them.
That's great. Charlotte, how about you?
I think the biggest thing, kind of going along the lines of kind of building every day, I think having this opportunity kind of showed me how much like less friction there is in terms of building, especially with hardware. I think now I could approach any like new idea I had and like actually actualize it and like bring it into the world, make it tangible, and then be able to, I guess, share it with, I guess, the community that I'm in. Yeah, so just like being able to really, I guess, pursue any ambitions that I have. Yeah, just like inspiring me in general.
I just wanted to add another point. Because we had so many speaker sessions, I think because I'm graduating now, there were ways that I had ideas where I could like strategize how to approach and what to talk about in terms of like if I wanted to look for a job, for example. I think that really gave me an idea of what is happening in the industry itself. So I love the speaker sessions that we had in the Transmedia Challenge.
Oh, that's great to hear. And moving on to the next question, and Deanna actually touched about it with the Sony Creative Entertainment Vision at the head of this session, but you know, kind of getting your crystal balls out and looking ahead to the next 10 years, which will be like the year 2035. What kind of world do you envision from a kind of experience and interactive standpoint?
I have this written down. So during Transmedia Challenge, we met a lot of really cool leaders, and they gave me an idea of like, all right. So there is this concept of hyperloop. Hyperloop, for people who don't know, it's basically like a super fast mode of transportation that can literally take people from, like, you can travel in minutes instead of 2 hours, 3 hours. And it's a game changer because it can distribute items to really inaccessible areas for underprivileged people. The technology itself uses like air pressure tubes with magnetic levitation. It's a really cool concept. I think Elon Musk is working on it, and Japan will probably be the first country to actually have it. But I'm really looking forward to this mode of transportation.
Yep, Charlotte, go ahead.
I think kind of building off what I was talking about earlier also, I feel like there was this one like cool pen. It was like a 3D printer pen where you could like draw and then it would become like something physical. I think just like combining all the things we said about like wanting to be in the real world, I think just because there's so much technology that's like bringing us and like I guess putting more emphasis on how important the like virtual world is, just having that I guess option to also create like very fast, just like as fast as we're creating software nowadays. There's a bunch of tools that you can create like a website in seconds. Like having that, but making it apply to like real life would be something that I think would be really cool and would just like in general make us, I guess, have so many more technical advancements quickly. Which
Sort of like a magic marker that's a 3D printer.
yes, something like that would be great. Yeah.
It's really cool, the concept that she is talking about, because it's already in process. Like there are buildings that are made of 3D printed materials, and it's like coming so fast and we don't even realize it. It's really cool.
And I know, quick aside here, I know, Charlotte, you were looking at some stuff around lasers, but also you got some additional inspiration coming here and looking at the CLED panels. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
We'll put you on the
yeah,
spot.
yeah, yeah. So currently, kind of going off Sony, I found it really rewarding to have my own sense of like agency and also my own hand in like designing a product. And so it kind of led me to the entrepreneurship space. And so recently I've been kind of exploring bringing new technologies to the live like entertainment space. Things like the sphere, the cosmos, like cosm, sorry, yeah, and all of that kind of stuff is like creating like a whole new experience, and I think it's a place that I really want to be in. And just the board, I think crystal LED light panel back there. It's just like so cool to like just stare at it. I don't know. It's just yeah, just like creating something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you were mesmerized when we started setting up yesterday.
Yeah.
And Eric, I mean, what's your view? You've, as your role in the ETC, over the past 10 years, you've put together, 9 going on 10 experimental films with the mission of how do we use new technologies, whether, it's cloud or virtual production. What's your idea of like what some of these interactive experiences and just entertainment in general looks like in the next 10 years?
Well, I think it's an exceptionally hard challenge for some of us to imagine at this pace of things at this particular point. But it's absolutely going to more interactive activity and more agency and being able to guide your own path in some way or frameworks to that, So you wouldn't just be telling a story, but someone would be delivering a framework for an experience of sorts. It would still be guided and understood in its own way, but it would have all these mechanisms and mediums. If they're still using traditional film, that would simply be a medium or almost a commercial into that world or understanding that world. So everything will be moving towards worlds and immersion in those worlds in some way, or that's the way I see it heading towards.
Yeah, and that was one of the things behind this program as well, was just how do we take some of the stories and create expanded universes, whether it's a television show or a film. But in order to do that, you need to figure out, okay, well, how do we bring assets over that were used in the production into these interactive experiences where, by and large, today it's kind of created from scratch. Whether if they're going to make a video game for Spider-Man, they're not taking the actual assets, they're actually creating new assets for the game, which makes sense because it's the assets that are used for the film are so large and not rigged in the way that they need to be for gaming. But
I do think that that's going to change. I do see a path right now where we are using assets cross board on things as we move forward.
yeah, and then also another topic but related. You mentioned like one of the alumni on one of our previous projects, Europa, that we also did with you guys, was really big into micro dramas, and I want to touch upon that now. This idea of kind of short form, bite-sized content.
So it's really interesting. So someone named Ting Ting, who was a producer on Europa, has done like 400 episodes since then. She's just really cranking these out. And I had never seen the animal microdramas, and then it started serving to me in IG this morning because I think you guys said it aloud somehow. But they're really funny. Have you seen this stuff? The cat smacking another cat and talking down to him, and like it's hilarious. But I definitely think that the medium, especially going from, we're so accustomed to wanting 2 hours of cinematic, but now I don't have time for that either, right? Jumping into something short form, quickly consumable, it does make sense.
Yeah. Madhu or Charlotte, have any, what are your thoughts on the microdrama? And also, in addition to that, just the notion of watching something in like a portrait mode versus landscape.
I love cat videos. Yeah, I love cat videos. Anything that has to do with cats. But those short, just real sort of concept is really good for our generation specifically because we don't have time at all. And amidst so much work, it's always nice to have that short break of content and really intriguing content that you would not generally see. So yeah, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, like you were saying, you're used to 2 hours. We're used to just like 1 minute videos. I will say though, we have this like habit of watching 1 minute videos for 2 hours. So, I guess in the end, we're doing something similar. Just having like more stimulus, I guess, is what's more appealing to us these days. I know like sometimes we're like watching Subway Surfer videos, and then on the bottom there's another video like about something else or like a movie perhaps. So just having like so much like information like just like appearing to you on your phone seems to be like a trend these days. So yeah.
And then I know we only had 12 weeks to do the Transmedia Challenge, and both of your experiences are on the short side. But what do you guys see? I feel it's also kind of bleeding into the interactive space where we're seeing more and more kind of the casual games, right? Ones that you can just go and play for a few minutes and then go on and do something else. I mean, did that have an influence on your projects at all?
For our project, definitely, because a lot, like if you play Torrent Tale, it's very similar to Subway Surfers or Temple Run in a way. It's like it has a goal and you're running from the hunter. The concept is very simple. So yes, and we wanted the demo to be very, very short. And even though we had to scope down a lot, since we did not have a lot of time to develop, we did have plans of using media pipe, have like hand tracking, gesture recognition. But from a realistic standpoint, we just scoped it down to keep it as minimum and engaging and fun as possible. So yes, we do tap into it, absolutely.
Yeah, for us, I feel like we had a bit less narrative than you did, of course. I think we, in the beginning, planned for it to be not too long of an experience. I guess traditionally, like music songs are only like 3 minutes, so we weren't shooting for anything crazy. And like you said, we also had to consider scope. We did know that we'd experience a lot of challenges throughout the process, and that we'd have to pivot. So with that in consideration, our project did like kind of fit in with a more like short form, I'd say. Yeah.
And then one last topic just to cover on that point was, and this is also primarily you, Charlotte, because I mentioned the theme for a lot of the projects was wellness. And so where do you see that fitting into, kind of all the genres now that are gaming? It seems like now there's this kind of whole new category that's wellness, kind of, recharging, taking a break, and just revitalizing. I mean, do you have any insights on that, especially even that yours was kind of squarely in that realm?
Yeah, so I think when I'm not like, I guess, gaming or like doing something fun with my friends, I'm like usually working, trying to do schoolwork, working on like projects like that. So I think creating an experience that would like kind of have that like a break, I guess, from our like busy lives, something to relax and I guess really enjoy was really important and definitely played a part into like what we ended up doing. And so we also considered like if we were to continue this project, we'd look to, I guess, use the EEG readings to kind of influence the music in a way that would kind of create like a feedback loop where like the music might influence the brainwaves that are creating the music to kind of, I guess, maybe lighten up your mood, things like that. So. Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us here today here at Sony, and please enjoy the rest of your time here at South by Southwest.